What's going on YouTube? Josh here checking in, back with another training video. So this workout, as you can tell, is going to be some pause squats and pause sumo deadlifts as the primary movements. And I actually haven't been able to pause squat successfully in quite a bit of time due to some injuries. So if you're new to the channel, I'm actually recovering from a tear in my sartorius muscle, which is in the hip. And as a result of that, any pause squatting was pretty much impossible, just because the hip on the left side would really just tighten up in the hole. And as you know, when you're kind of holding tension in that pause squat, it makes it very difficult if you've got some significant hip pain. So in these, I'm doing a low bar position, and I am definitely leaning forward more than I would like. Certainly going forward, this is something that I'm going to be very conscientious of and working on. Unfortunately, just due to recovery from this injury, I am developing a little bit of scar tissue on the front of that hip, so the mobility is taking a hit a bit. Going forward, I'm definitely going to be more conscientious of my bar position and making sure that the bar is not really going too far forward over the midfoot. Coming out of the hole kind of becomes a lot more treacherous if I'm in that kind of less than powerful position in the hole. So that's just going to be something I'm going to be working on going forward. One thing that you will note is that I kind of do my best to kind of open up those knees on the way down. I'm not really necessarily exaggerating the quote-unquote knees out cue, but I do try and make sure that I do my best to sort of drop into the hole as opposed to sitting back. So I don't sit back into my squats because that to me would kind of make me kind of leaned over, but I do my best to try and think about sort of sitting into the hole and trying to get my butt as close between my heels as possible. That helps me maintain an upright torso, and it's definitely something I've found useful working with other lifters. So over here, we're doing some pause deadlifts, pause sumo deadlifts. Keep in mind that those inside plates are 100-pound plates, so it's not like this is, you know, super lightweight. It's not heavy by any means. This is actually my first pause squat and pause sumo deadlift workout of this training cycle. If you're new to the channel, I basically had to take some time off after my last powerlifting meet because I got an injection in my hip from the MRI to see that I had a torn muscle. So I kind of have been slowly working myself back up, and in this, because the weight is so light, just about 385 pounds, the volume is quite a bit higher. And as I go through the training cycle, the volume will certainly decrease there. So the pause sumo deadlift is really one of my favorite accessories for my sumo deadlift. They really tax you depending on where you need to pause. So in this case, I'm doing my best to pause sort of mid shin there, and as a result of that, you really end up taxing the upper back musculature as well as the core. At least for my sumo stance, because I don't really have the mobility to sort of have my my crotch directly over the bar and be extremely vertical. I do my best to maintain an upright torso angle as I can, but there is still you know, quite a bit of an angle there, and that's something I'm working on as well as far as mobility goes. But I think being able to maintain that core tightness and really prevent that upper back from rounding in these lower weights will certainly carry over to the heavier weights. You know, when I get really heavy, say above, for me, 550 on the sumo deadlift, I do start experiencing quite a bit of rounding in the upper back, and I'm hoping to reduce that because that definitely tends to make the lockout quite a bit harder. So we'll see how incorporating these pause sumo deadlifts goes in my training going forward. Yeah, and we'll take it from there. So speaking of the lockout on the sumo deadlift, one other aspect in my training that I'm focusing on this training cycle is my glutes. So over here you'll see some banded hip thrusts, and this is a great accessory movement that I've really been enjoying, and I'll actually be having a video probably within the next week or so just describing the setup and what are some of the cues that you should be thinking about when you're performing this movement. So I actually got this, I mentioned this before on the channel, but if you're new, I got the idea to start incorporating this into my training from Paul Wynn, who is the world record deadlift holder for 165 at the moment. I believe his deadlift was 718. You know, and obviously just because it works for him doesn't mean it's going to work for you or it's going to work for me. But I found that in my last training cycle, as the weights were getting heavy on my sumo deadlift, I was having a little bit of an issue activating my glutes at the lockout, and I really want to make sure that that's never an issue. So I'm kind of just being a little bit proactive with this. Due to the fact that the band tension is greatest at the top of the movement at full extension, I'm hoping that will carry over to the sumo deadlift. So over here you're seeing what is called a spread eagle medicine ball sit-up. This is a really old school movement that was used a really long time ago. And basically I'm using this because I train mostly at a CrossFit gym where there's minimal equipment. And, as a result of that, you kind of have to get a little bit creative. But as far as ab work goes, this is actually quite a bit more challenging than it may look. You really need to do your best to keep that core tight, and ideally I would have the ball a little bit more directly overhead as opposed to kind of coming in front of me. That's basically the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to give it a like, and if you're not a subscriber already, hit that subscribe button. I'll catch you guys in the next video.